Hey guys, welcome to my channel again. In this video we're going to be completing the square. This is part 2. If you have not watched the first part, please pause this video right now and go and watch the first part. Again, completing the square is a skill that is very useful when it comes to solving a quadratic. And again, solving a quadratic means that you're trying to find the x-intercept. So let's go over this next problem. It's fairly easy. And let's just remember a couple of things. Remember that in order to complete the square, we use the formula b divided by 2 squared. And there's a general form to factor after you have completed the square that says that if you have x squared plus bx plus b over 2 squared, well, you can pretty much factor this into x plus b over 2 squared. I'm going to add another one, and it's very similar. There's only one thing that changes, and that says that if we have x squared minus bx plus b over 2 squared, you can factor that into x minus b over 2 squared. And this is the formula that we're going to use for this other problem. So notice that the only thing that changes is a minus. There's a plus there, and it changes to a minus. Plus changes to a minus. So this formula is very easy to remember. And let's jump into this next example. So let me make this to a little bit prettier. Let's see. Okay, that's a little bit better. So I want to complete the square for this binomial, and in order to do that, I'm going to use a formula b divided by 2 square. Well, b divided by 2 squared, that just gives me negative 9 divided by 2 square. And you have the option to write this down as a decimal, or you can just leave it as a fraction. Well, I like to work with fractions. I think for this particular case it's a little bit easier to handle, and I'm just going to leave this as 81 divided by 4. And you can put this in the calculator, negative 9 over 2 squared. Make sure that you are using parentheses so the calculator is reading it correctly. So when you put this in the calculator, you get 81 over 4. Or you can also do negative 9 times 9 is 81. 2 times 2 is 4. So that gives you again 81 over 4. My result, I'm going to add it to the binomial that I had. Well, what if I want to factor this? Well, if I want to factor this, I can use the formula that we previously talked about, right? X squared minus bx plus b over 2 squared, that's equal to x minus b squared plus 2. Well, and that's pretty much what we have here, right? It's the same thing that we have here. And I can just write it as x minus, well, b over 2 is this. B over 2 is that. So I'm going to write down minus 9 over 2 squared. And let's just check to see that we did this correctly. Well, this is going to take a little bit longer, but just bear with me. We have x minus 9 squared. That's the same thing as x minus 9 over 2, x minus 9 over 2 squared times x minus 9 over 2. It's the same thing. Okay, so now that I have this, well, I can distribute and see if I get my original result, which is this one here. Well, x minus x times x, that is just x times x is x squared. X times negative 9 over 2, that is negative 9 over 2 x. Negative 9 over 2x, negative 9 over 2 times x is negative 9 over 2x. Let me write that here, x. And finally, negative 9 over 2 times negative 9 over 2, that's positive 81 over 4. Well, let's see what we get here. So x squared minus negative 9 over 2 minus 9 over 2. Well, I keep the same denominator. That gives me negative 18 over 2 x plus 81 over 4. And hopefully you already saw the final answer. That will be x squared minus 9x plus 81 over 4. So notice that we got the exact same thing that we had at the beginning. So therefore this factorization is correct. So x minus 9 squared, I'm sorry, let me say that again. X minus 9 over 2 squared is the same thing as x squared minus 9x plus 81. And we proved that here. So here's a final picture for this problem. Let me see, hopefully you can get a good picture here. There you go. So that's part 2 for completing the square.